Hello. Welcome to Lost Theologies. I'm your host, Chad. Today, I would like to talk about why I left religion. And I'm going to turn off my music. Hopefully you can't hear it anymore. Let's see. There we go. Music is still on for me, so I need to turn that off. Technical difficulties, please stand by. Welcome to Lost Theologies. My name is Chad, and today I'm going to talk about why I left religion. I was raised religious. I was raised in the church my parents founded, which was a small non-denominational Bible church that comes in the Evangelical Protestant tradition. But we didn't belong to any specific denomination. It was just a church my parents started. My dad felt a calling to be a pastor, or to be in ministry. And he had worked, I believe, with the American Baptists, doing some campus ministry, and then decided to start his own student Bible study. And then they started a church from that. And that's where I was raised. So that church had influences from the Plymouth Brethren movement, and they don't have pastors technically. They have like elders and deacons. And so my dad was one of the elders, and he was the only one that was like a full-time paid minister. So people would call him pastor and people would call him minister, but he would always say he was a Bible teacher, and he still does say that because he still is a pastor. I embraced their faith as my own. I was from a young age, so I considered myself a Christian. At some point, I said something similar to a sinner's prayer before I don't even really remember anything about it. So it could have been 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around those ages. My parents might be able to tell you exactly when that happened, but I don't know. I went to a Christian grade school, small private school. And I attended that through 8th grade. I think we had about 12 people that graduated 8th grade from that school. And at that time, they did not have a high school. Well, they had a associated high school, but I went to public school after that. By the time I was a teenager, I was playing guitar in the worship band at church. I was an Awana leader, which is a ministry for kids to teach them the evangelical gospel. I was leading spiritual discussions among my friends and getting lots of compliments on my Christian maturity. And I know, like, when I was in 8th grade, I had several like spiritual experiences centered around really fervent prayer times that was encouraged by some of my teachers. And I had lots of what I would now consider, religious experiences, feelings of awe and transcendence. And I was slightly more like skeptical and doctrinally oriented than some of my friends. but I continued having those kind of spiritual experiences up until the end of my faith journey, which happened in my mid 30s. I was an Awana leader. I was a worship band member. I went to Bible camp every summer, had a lot of great experiences there. Just like singing worship songs, learning about God, praying, reading the Bible. I started reading C.S. Lewis pretty early on. I read apologetics pretty early on. I was a young earth creationist. That was also something I was raised with. Right before and in high school, I was like, my parents hosted a high school Bible study in our house. So I had my friends and invited friends over to that. I did like the see you at the pole thing a couple times, where you would meet other Christians in your high school to pray early in the morning. The first kind of crack, or the first development in my faith, probably happened in high school and in college, because I was a musician and I would get frustrated by the evangelical view of the arts. And what that means for me is that, or what that meant for me at the time, is that, like, if you played music or you played in a band, you were expected to use your music as a ministry. And I wanted to use music as a personal artistic outlet and not as a ministry. And so that was one of the first cracks in my faith, is that I became more interested in kind of a deeper or historical view of the arts. And I started reading books by Frankie Schaeffer, who is Francis Schaeffer's son. Francis Schaeffer is a famous kind of evangelical philosopher, and his son was an artist and a bit of a rebel. And his son eventually became Eastern Orthodox. And I kept reading his books, and I still do. He's one of my favorite authors, Frankie Schaeffer. So I think that was kind of the first crack in my faith, and it meant that I was becoming more interested in other denominations. I read this book called The Handbook of Denominations, and even in my teen years, I was very interested in how different Christians thought about theological issues and church government issues. And in college, I started thinking, maybe someday I might want to be an Anglican or something like that. So what happened next? In college, I was an InterVarsity leader. InterVarsity is if you've heard of Campus Crusade, it's really similar to that, but it's kind of a campus ministry. And I was a leader, unpaid leader. I was a volunteer leader, and I led worship for them. And I kept getting more interested in liturgy and history, and I was just kind of tired of relying on my own insights into the Bible. I remember getting frustrated with InterVarsity's emphasis on quiet times. So quiet times were like this very encouraged devotional time that they expected you to have every day, preferably in the morning, where you would read your Bible and pray and gain some insights. And I just remember kind of rejecting the the rules around quiet time and rejecting the expectation that I would have to do this every day. I just thought it was legalistic, and I was getting tired of just people relying on their own insights into the Bible and rejecting expertise. So I had always gravitated towards reading like systematic theologies. I didn't go very deep in it, but I had this Ryrie Study Bible, which is this dispensationalist theologian named Charles Ryrie, very famous study Bible in my circles. And I just remember loving reading his study notes, or the notes in the Bible. And I loved reading like his doctrinal outlines. I enjoyed that way more than actually reading the Bible itself, because I just kind of found the Bible a slog to just read straight through. But I loved reading about the Bible and learning about it. So that was another kind of crack in my armor there. When I was in college, I ran across a free book called Surprised by Truth. It was a collection of conversion stories to Catholicism. And I had never really considered it. I had known maybe one or two Catholics in my life, not very closely, but I read that book and I was just kind of blown away by the arguments against sola scriptura. And that book started an obsession where I just read Catholic blogs and Catholic apologetics and Catholic books. And I think that the Catholic arguments against Protestantism were really left me shaken. And in many ways, Catholicism was kind of my last ditch effort to hang on to my faith after growing up for so long within that context. So I converted to Catholicism. This happened after I was married. So I converted, I think I was 26. I'd already had my first kid. I definitely thought some of the arguments for Catholicism were better, especially around historical grounding and the view of authority. So my Protestant tradition basically recognized the Bible as an authority, but Catholicism said, no, you need tradition and you need the magisterium to come in and decide these doctrinal disagreements. But at the same time, there was a lot of Catholic doctrines that I didn't necessarily think were well supported, but I embraced them anyway, because I feel like I fully submitted to the Catholic Church's teaching authority. And so even if there was a doctrine like the Assumption of Mary that didn't really have a lot of historical grounding to it, I still accepted it. And I did kind of this radical submission where I would defend any doctrine that the church teaches. And I learned all the apologetic arguments that I could and read as many books that I could, and was starting to get really into like Catholic philosophy and stuff like that. I didn't really become an expert necessarily, but I was definitely more informed than, 95% of the Catholics in the pews. In the last, I was a Catholic for 9 years, fully committed. Went to Mass every week, often went to Mass daily, went to confession, adored the Eucharist, went to adoration, read read the Catechism, read Ratzinger. He was my pope. I went to New York when he visited New York. I got to see him from a distance, and that was really cool at the time. In the last couple years of my Catholic faith, I started to recognize in myself that my faith was more like fandom than it was something I would live and die for. I felt like when I defended Catholicism, I was arguing like Star Trek versus Star Wars. I enjoyed the mental exercise. I enjoyed hanging out with my fellow Catholic geeks, most of which were online, but I made some Catholic friends here in Kansas City. But when I asked myself, did I believe it was literally true, and was it something I would die for? Was it really true? I started to think maybe it wasn't. And so after almost 10 years as a Catholic, I just kind of abandoned religion altogether, and it was almost surprisingly easy. It felt like I flipped a switch. There was one Sunday where I was like, I don't think I believe this anymore. This is me talking to myself. I don't think I believe this anymore. I don't think I'm going to go to Mass this Sunday. And if you skip Mass as a Catholic on purpose, that's a mortal sin, or it's grave matter. And you're basically, I was basically saying, I don't believe it, and I don't care if I go to hell for not going to Mass. So since then, I've been basically an atheist. I don't believe in any gods currently, and I'm okay with that. I'm open to arguments and proofs and interesting conversations about whether a God exists, or whether Christianity is true. That's kind of why I started this channel, and I especially like the channels with open forums. So I hope to do open forums soon, especially if I get enough subscribers. But yeah, I would love to talk about it further. And one of the last, I have a whole list of kind of things that chipped away at my faith. And I think in the next video, I will start going through those. Hopefully those are interesting to people. But the biggest thing for me is that Catholicism allowed me to understand nature as it really is. So just kind of it allowed me to be a realist about how the world works, and just kind of the whole natural theology, secondary causes, those set of ideas. Whether it was being open to evolution, learning about that, learning about the arguments that we can learn how the world really exists and how it really works, as long as we don't deny the faith, or that we don't deny any dogmas. That allowed me a lot of mental space. And I think that same concept, like learning about evolution, meant I could learn about the evolution of religions. I could learn about the evolution of sacred texts like the Bible. I could learn about the evolution of morality. And theoretically, as a Catholic, as long as you don't deny revelation, you can learn about the way the world really works. But for me, like, the more I learned about the way the world really works, the less I needed faith, the less I needed grace, in my mind anyway. I'm sure Catholics would disagree, but the less I needed it as something to believe in. So I'm fine with just nature. I guess I'm yeah. a naturalist or scientific materialist or something like that. Fine with that. I spend a lot of my time now still learning about the history of Christianity and Catholicism and the Bible. And since the pandemic, I've been watching lots of YouTube, and still, I don't really read like apologetics anymore because I've read a lot of that already, but trying to read, more historical works and actual scholarship about the formation of the canon and early Christianity. And then lots of popular science books as well, just to kind of catch up on the science that I never allowed myself to really learn because of young Earth creationism of my youth. So, yeah, next time I will start going through a list of some of the fun things that chipped away at my faith. I've got doctrines in here. I have books that I've read. I have conversations that I've had. I have podcasts that I've listened to, learning about different new religious movements and how they formed. I have some stuff about the failure of conservative Catholicism, certain figures that were very popular that fell. So I will be talking about those and a little bit of everything else. Looks like I have no live viewers, so I don't think I'll be answering any questions. But we can stick around for a little bit and see if anyone asks anything. Like systematic theologies, little. All right. Well, I'm going to see if anyone else is live and maybe join a broadcast or two later today. Talk to you soon. Bye.